Washington State Governor Jay Inslee is expected to officially throw his name into the presidential ring. We hear from both sides of the aisle about what steps he needs to take next.
Also ahead, students and educators are trying to convince lawmakers to make it easier for voters to approve school bond measures. We'll tell you why that could be a tough sell in Olympia.
On the 18th anniversary of the Nisqually earthquake, some of the structural fixes we still need to make.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Washington's Governor Jay Inslee is expected to announce a run for the presidency as soon as tomorrow.
And today it's prompting reaction from both sides of the aisle and speculation about what's next for other potential candidates.
Inslee's candidacy could trigger a political domino of sorts if it lasts for a while, but according to one political leader, we'll know by this summer whether his candidacy has staying power.
When I think of the family tradition of
Governor Jay Inslee back on campus today at his alma mater, the University of Washington, but not dropping hints about his potential next appearance. It is widely believed in political circles that Inslee will make an announcement about a presidential campaign by the end of this week. Politico reporting today he's already hired multiple experienced Democratic political campaign staffers for a 2020 run. Timing is everything.
If you think about launching your presidential campaign now, you have until the end of May, really.
That's because, according to State Democratic Party Chair Tina Podladowski, a candidate has to hit certain polling or fundraising marks to be invited to the first Democratic presidential debate.
There are significant polls in those first four early states, Nevada, New Hampshire, South Carolina, as well as Iowa, and you have to hit 1% on those. You have to have at least 65,000 discrete donations from individuals, including at least 200 donations in 20 different states in the country to get a ticket onto that debate stage.
The state's GOP chair, Caleb Heimlich, says Inslee should, quote, do the people of Washington state a favor and resign while he pursues his vanity run. A resignation or lengthy run could also open the door for a gubernatorial campaign by the likes of Attorney General Bob Ferguson, King County Executive Dow Constantine, or Lands Commissioner Hillary Franz.
I know that the governor has had conversations with sort of the three contenders now that are out there.
we believe in our future.
That's the domino effect in the political path not walked here in 4 decades. Senator Henry Scoop Jackson was the last Washington politician to run for president until he lost the nomination to Jimmy Carter back in 1976. That's the story for now. In the King 5 Newsroom, Chris Daniels, King 5 News.
It was a relatively dry day around western Washington, but things are changing slightly as the sun goes down. Darren Peck, what do you see?
Well, there are still a few showers out there, Lori, and as we go to the live radar, we got to go down to the South Sound. There's not a lot going on here, but a closer look shows us there is just a light mix of some rain, and really, honestly, it's just going to be rain. I was checking in on some of the sensors down in Olympia, and they're reporting just a few light showers, and this is going to fall apart, and I'm showing that to you because it's all I have. There's nothing else on the radar. As you could tell just from stepping outside today, it was a beautiful blue sky day. The whole weekend is going to be like that. We are getting a break from the storm track. The cold air's not going anywhere, though. We're in the mid-40s now. We made it up to 49 for the daytime high today. That had to feel kind of nice. It was still below average for us. But here's what I want you to see in terms of the numbers right now. Instead of looking at the current temperature, I want you to see how much warmer we are than 24 hours ago. And I did this with you last night as well. And we were already 4 to 5 degrees warmer yesterday than the day before. And now we're doing it again, about 5 to 6 degrees warmer. So it's kind of nice to warm things up. I'll show you what's coming next. Our next chance of rain, middle of next week. Be back with a complete forecast in a few minutes, guys. Back over to you.
Okay, Darren, thank you. The Washington State Senate has passed an anti-bullying measure that would require policies intended to protect transgender students in public schools. The bill would require school administrators to develop strategies to eliminate gender identity discrimination and address specific challenges for those students. The bill has moved now to the House for consideration.
Majority doesn't always rule when it comes to the Washington education system.
School district bonds need a super majority. You probably know that, 60% to pass. But educators, students, and some lawmakers are trying to change that. South Bureau Chief Drew Mickelson found out it's not going to be simple to change to that requirement for a simple majority.
Welcome to the legislature.
It's not a field trip. These ninth graders are here to teach state lawmakers a lesson.
When it rains, the ceiling leaks in the orchestra room, and there are specific spots we have to watch out for.
They're Bethel students from a district that has outgrown its schools. Students sit on the floor, eat in the classroom. Elementary students have to walk to their portables at the middle school next door. 4 times in a row, bond measures to pay for new schools didn't reach the required 60% majority.
We can't lead tomorrow's future being held back by past laws.
The supermajority is undemocratic, meaning it does not fulfill the belief in power held by the people.
They want legislators to lower the threshold for bond measures to a simple majority.
This is something that needs to be fixed, and until it does, the entire state's education system is going to be hobbled.
They have the backing of Superintendent Tom Siegel.
They need to change the rules so you can actually have a majority of local voters spending local tax dollars to support local kids rather than the automatic advantage the naysayers have.
But lawmakers like Republican Senate Leader Mark Schessler say the higher threshold should make districts more careful with their funds. Schessler also questioned how much of Bethel's funding goes toward teacher and administrator pay.
Tom, what's your salary?
$212,000.
Well, maybe he should think about his excessive salary before he asks the voters for more money. In many cases, it's not because the voters aren't generous, it's because their tax base is really poor.
When we were in the portable, that same portable, we had a scheduled fire drill, and the fire alarms didn't go off. Yeah.
Things should get better for Bethel students. Earlier this month, more than 66% of voters approved a bond. But by the time a new high school is built, these 3 will have graduated.
It doesn't mean we don't want to help other kids.
Yeah.
Because in the future, this problem might happen again, and we want to make sure that future students have a good education.
The University of Washington opened a new lab today, and it's being dedicated to Bill and Melinda Gates. The $110 million Bill and Melinda Gates Center for Computer Science and Engineering doubles the capacity of the Paul G. Allen School. The main floor is devoted entirely to undergraduates. It has laboratories, meeting rooms, and a student services center that provides a one-stop shop for academic advising and career guidance.
Oregon has become the first state in the nation to impose mandatory rent controls. Governor Kate Brown signed a bill today that would prevent landlords from raising rents more than once a year. The bill also caps rent increases at 7% plus inflation. But a recent study found since 2001, average rent increases in Oregon have only gone above 7% twice. Renters advocates say that makes that 7% cap pretty meaningless.
Why on earth are they looking at these averages that are like, okay, when averages are this high, we'd call that a housing crisis. Let's set the limit twice as high as that. Like, literally, what problem are they trying to solve?
The bill also means landlords can no longer evict a tenant without cause once a tenant has been in a property for more than a year.
Amazon is providing a tool that will allow brands to remove listings of suspected counterfeit goods from its website. Currently, brands have to report fake products to Amazon, and the items would have to be removed after an investigation. The new self-service tool will speed up the process.
Police in Bellingham have arrested a suspect in connection with a fire at a business in the central part of Bellingham in Whatcom County. The fire destroyed whole feed and seed last Monday. Investigators say a 57-year-old man started a fire in an alley behind the store to try to stay warm. The man was arrested for reckless burning. Several small animals had to be rescued from that fire. Many of them are up for adoption this coming Saturday. If you're interested, contact the Bellingham Humane Society.
Do you remember the magnitude 6.8 earthquake that struck western Washington 18 years ago today?
It was quite the shaker, but nothing compared to the big one geologists are expecting. King 5's Glenn Farley is here now with what we learned from the past and what we should be doing to plan for the future. Glenn.
Yeah, it almost feels like yesterday for those of us who went through it. Maybe not yesterday, maybe last week. Anyway, so we've talked a lot and prepared a lot for you on king5.com and how you can be personally ready for an earthquake. But what about our bridges, our schools, maybe the buildings where we live or work? Bottom line, this is a work in progress.
Earthquake. Earthquake. That's a serious earthquake.
It was the Nisqually earthquake 18 years ago, February 28, 2001, that dramatically focused our attention on our vulnerable infrastructure. As a direct result of Nisqually, there is a newly opened quake-resistant tunnel running for 2 miles under downtown Seattle. replacing the earthquake-vulnerable Alaskan Way viaduct. Teardown of the viaduct about to enter its third week. Former Governor Christine Gregoire.
I was not going to give up. It had to come down.
Gregoire also drove the effort to replace the old seismically suspect 520 floating bridge. So with those mega projects done, we're good, right? A single-word answer, no. Let's take schools. Geologists estimate that 72% of schools are in a significant earthquake hazard zone. But when an earthquake strikes, how will those schools hold up?
And then the sidewalls, I think, are something that we really got to look at.
Last year, I went out with a team hired by the Washington Geological Survey to study schools, from their expert eyes spotting vulnerabilities inside gyms and classrooms to studying hidden vulnerabilities in the blueprints.
You know, we'd be looking at, floor plans on how the buildings are ranged, how well the walls are connected to the floor, how well the walls are connected to the roof.
The plans drawn up when these schools were first built before we fully understood our earthquake risks.
But I know what we come today is not the end of this rodeo. We got a lot.
Current Governor Jay Inslee is now the one pulling together Washington's military department and emergency management, scientists, planners, and others to make for a more quake-resistant state. Senate Bill 5557, introduced in mid-February, addresses a lot of needed change, including trying to create an inventory of unreinforced masonry buildings. These are buildings, mostly brick, built over 60 or more years ago, and they're all over the west side of the state. California requires that these types of structures be retrofitted to withstand quakes or torn down. One idea to provide economic incentives to help make those retrofits affordable. But right now, we don't know how many there are out there. But let's revisit our highways for a moment. The state retrofitted the I-5 Ship Canal Bridge decades ago. You can see those tie rods and extra steel to keep the bridge in place during shaking. But it may require roughly $100 million more of work to make it as tough as it needs to be.
The Department of Transportation says that bridge retrofit hasn't yet been approved, but $161 million has been allocated for other bridge projects, much of it focused on lifeline corridors like I-5 that will prove crucial during an earthquake to help speed rescuers and supplies to where they're needed when a really big earthquake strikes.
You talk about really big earthquakes. So this Nisqually quake is not really the big one.
It's not the big one. So Nisqually didn't do that much damage. There was a lot of damage, but not that much because it was down so deep. Okay. I mean, even if you were standing on top of the epicenter, you were still 30 miles away. That's how deep it was. Had that been at the surface, a much different story. The big thing we worry about, of course, is the magnitude 9 or 9 plus that will strike off the coast, a quake lasting for 5 minutes. And that could be very, very devastating. That's why everybody needs to be 2 weeks ready.
Okay. Thank you, Glenn.
Coming up, a life-saving transport service is coming to Port Angeles. We take a ride on board Life Flight and show you how it will benefit this remote community.
Also coming up, the story of a true marathon man who did what some say is impossible and ran a marathon on all 7 continents in a week.